What's up guys, welcome to the first of many Ableton Live 9 videos. I hope you guys learn a lot as we go throughout this course, and I always tell people Ableton is like learning to play an instrument. When you pick up an instrument for the first time, you just have to practice to be good at it. Ableton isn't something that you can just learn and walk away from, so I encourage you as you watch all these videos to practice whatever it is that pops out at you, to dive in and just play with it hands-on yourself, because that's the best way to learn. So we're just going to spend this first video just getting to know the layout of Ableton. If you've been using Ableton already for a little while, this might just be review, so you can skip to the next video. But basically there's two different views in Ableton. We have our session view, which is what we're looking at right now, and we also have our arrangement view. And if I take my cursor to the top right corner of the screen, you can see we have these vertical bars and horizontal bars. If I click the other one, we can see this is our arrangement view that we're looking at right now. And arrangement view is probably what you're more familiar with if you use another DAW like Logic or Pro Tools. So we have our tracks over here on the right, and everything when we're recording is going left to right like you would see in a normal digital audio workstation. So let's go back to session view, and we can see we have these exact same tracks that we just looked at. Anytime you open a new project in Ableton, it's going to default and give you 2 audio tracks and 2 MIDI tracks. So you may be wondering what all these little slots are here if you're not familiar with Ableton, and these are what we call our clip slots. And basically if I double click on any of these, it's going to create a new clip, except for the audio. It's not going to create a clip because you have to load an actual audio clip in there, and we'll dive into more of that later. But any MIDI track, you can double click and it's going to create a new clip slot. And if you look, you can see that on the far right of the screen we have our master track, and it's numbered 1 through 8. And what these are called are scenes, and you notice if I click on any one of these, it highlights the entire row all the way across. And what this is doing is this is organizing a series of clips with our 4 tracks that we have right now. And if I click one of these triangles, these are play buttons. If I click this, it's going to start playing all of the clips in this row. So if I select 5 and I hit play, you can see that the play button for this clip is activated. Now if I double click on the clip, you can see it's playing, and we have our play ahead. This line is scrolling through and it's playing this 1 bar of nothing because we haven't created any notes in our MIDI clip yet, and we haven't loaded any kind of preset or instrument onto this MIDI track that's highlighted right now. So I can hit play just by tapping the space bar and hit the space bar again to stop. So there's 3 types of tracks in Ableton. As we mentioned, we have our audio tracks and we have our MIDI tracks. But we also have what are called send and return tracks. And these are returns right here. And anytime you open a new live set, it's going to automatically create a reverb and a delay, and we'll talk more about these later and how to use these. It's really great for creating effects and adding creative workflow to your song or your track that you're creating. Now to the left over here we have all these different folders in Ableton. Right now I'm on the plugins. If I click on sounds, all of these are different presets that are of a different genre and type. So we have our bass. So if I click on the arrow and open this, all of these are different bass sounds that Ableton gives us to load onto a MIDI track. And you see these little square gray boxes next to each one of these names, and this is just showing us that this is a preset for MIDI. So if I click on any one of these, it's automatically going to start playing that sound for me and give me an idea what it sounds like. So if I click on it, you can see at the bottom it just played it, and if I want to turn that off so I don't hear it, then I'll just click the headphone jack here, and if I click on another one it won't play it. So that's how you do that. We have our drums folder, and the same thing, we have all these presets. We'll talk more about how to use the drum rack later. That's a really powerful tool. We also have our instruments folder, and these are presets, but what it's showing us are, if I open tension for example, we see that all of these presets, these different instrument presets that we have, are created with tension. And Tension and Simpler and Sampler and all these other ones are sound devices, basically for sound design. German engineers from Ableton created these for us to manipulate, and we can go in and we can experiment in creating and manipulating our own sounds from them. And all the presets in Ableton are made from one of these devices, so keep that in mind. Audio effects, we have our audio effects folder. We can throw onto audio or MIDI tracks or return tracks. We have our MIDI effects, which can only go on a MIDI track. We have Max for Live, which is a sound design programming platform that we're not going to cover in this course, but if you want to get deeper into programming, that's something that you can experiment with. We have our plugins folder for all the plugins you have on your computer. We'll talk more about that later. We have clips. These are just random clips that Ableton gave us that we can drop on an audio track. And you can see it has the play with the little squiggle icon next to these names, and that's showing us it's an audio file. And then we have our samples, which is a similar thing. We have all these audio files as well that we can use. Well, there is a very quick and brief overview of Ableton with the session and arrangement view. There's a million things that we didn't cover, just that you probably already noticed on the screen. If you're not familiar with Ableton's layout, then don't worry, we're going to continue to dive in more and go deeper. Next, we're going to learn how to play with MIDI clips inside the session view, and then later on we're going to dive into how to record and play in the arrangement view. And one thing just to keep in mind, the MIDI tracks and the audio tracks and the return tracks that you see in arrangement view right now are the exact same ones that you're seeing here in the session view, and we'll learn how they interact and come together in later videos. So key thing is just to have fun with Ableton. It's a beast, but we'll learn it together, and I hope you guys enjoy this course.